The March 26, 2018 meeting of the Public Safety Committee will now come to order. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Elkoffer? Here. Chairwoman Boyce?
Here.
Mrs. Conley? Here. Mr. Delahanty?
Here.
Ms. Harris?
Here.
Mr. Mafucci?
Here.
Mr. Shepard?
Here.
Mr. Terp?
Here.
Mr. Zal?
Here.
Okay, is there anyone here signed up for the public forum?
There is not.
Seeing none, public forum is now closed. Next item on the agenda, excuse me. Next item on the agenda, is there anyone, the next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. If you have the February 26, 2018 minutes before you, they'll stand approved until the end of the day, until the clerk is notified, unless the clerk is notified. Next item on the agenda is new business. Madam Clerk?
Referral 18-0100.
Okay, can we slow down, let her get through the number, that would be great, Mr. Zal. So moved by Mr. Zal, seconded by Legislator Conley. Any questions on the floor? Mr. Zal.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I will do my best to slow my roll, as they say.
Yes, thank you.
I'm curious on this. I know that there isn't a dollar value present in that. We're kind of looking into the future for this. But through you to the administration, I'm just curious if there is something, trying to figure out how to say this. Is there a value, a dollar value that we've seen in the past that we can kind of equate to this time around for this referral?
Through the chair, Jennifer Curley. I can answer on behalf of the Sheriff's Office. For 2016, we received 1,812.
Oh.
For 2017, we received 10,246, and for 2018, we received 26,676.
Oh my
I like
goodness.
the trend.
Is okay.
Through the chair, from the District Attorney's Office, in 2017, we received $48,050, and to date in 2018, we've received $39,000.
Okay, so through the chair to the administration, is it a certain pot that's released through the state budget or through a budget that's just inconsistent? Is that why it's that way?
Of course, from the DA's office. No, this has nothing to do with the state budget. This is federally funded, and it's entirely dependent on the number of seizures that occur during the course of the calendar year and whether the federal authorities opt to move forward with forfeiture of, in connection with those seizures.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, Mr. Mafucci.
I'm still a little new at this, so if I say something I shouldn't, please let me know. Do we budget for this money at all?
Through the chair, no, it's not possible to budget for this money, and in fact, we're not supposed to budget for this money because we don't know what could come along.
Thank you. And through the chair to the administration. So this money that comes in, what do we do with it?
Through the chair, there are a variety of things that we can do. First of all, the funds are kept separately in a trust fund, and there's federal regulations of what they can be used for. They need to be used for a law enforcement purpose. You have to avoid supplanting, and the major way that the District Attorney's Office uses the funds is for equipment, specifically for cars for our investigators and our District Attorney.
Thank you. And through the chair, one more question. At least I think it's one more question. So if we don't expense the money, do we roll it over into the next year? Does it become like unappropriated fund balance?
Through the chair, that is correct. It rolls over into the seizure fund account.
And then through the chair, so that money is reported in a separate budget line?
Through It's in the financial statement in the column for trust funds.
Okay, thank you very much. Again, I'm new, through the chair, I'm kind of new at this, so I'm used to how schools work. So I'm just trying to figure out what happens with money that you don't expect comes, where does it go, how is it reported, that type of thing. Thank you very much.
That's fine. No problem. Yes, Ms. Harris.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Through the administration, through the chair, I'd like to know, are we required, excuse me, are we required to opt into this annually?
Through the chair, I do not believe we are mandated or required to do it.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item passes. Next item on the agenda.
Referral 18-0101.
Moved by Legislator Connolly, seconded by Legislator, was it Alcoffer? Yes, thank you. Questions on the floor? Mr. Mafucci.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through the administration, through the chair to the administration. I'm just wondering, I noticed in the budget that you budget the grants in a separate fund. And do you back that grant, do you back any grant money up in any way with tax levy dollars or other revenue?
Through the chair, although this is a grant, it's kind of treated more as an allocation. It's not necessarily a grant. We never know how much we're going to get, and it just really offsets general operating expenses, so it's not treated as a true grant.
Through the chair, so that it doesn't really provide for any direct services.
Through the chair, the claim for basic is salaries, but our salaries, with an over $18 million contract and 90% or so of which is salaries, it just kind of offsets that amount.
So through the chair, just one more question. So this really is kind of unexpected revenue that we count on to a certain amount every year that we use for salaries and other.
Through the chair, it's not really unexpected. It comes from the $1.20 in the cellular phone charges. And the amount that the state collects, $10 million of that is set aside statewide to share with the counties for public safety operating point grants.
Yeah, so my final question through the chair to the administration, then you really wouldn't back up any of this money in another way, just in case you don't get what you might expect.
Through the chair, no, it would just be a revenue shortfall. The expense would still be there in salary.
Thank you very much.
Any further questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item passes. Next item on the agenda.
Referral 18-0102.
Moved by Legislator Alcoffer, seconded by Legislator Turp. Items on the, or questions on the floor? Seeing none. Going once, going twice. I'm going to ask a question. Have we done work with CyberWorks before? Can we have a mic on, Mr. Sopransky, please?
Tim Sopransky, Monroe County EMS, the chair. We have not, my office in the county has not done work with CyberWorks that I'm aware of.
Okay. And with regard to that, can you tell us more about this training that you plan to do?
So to the chair, there is already some training that is out there that was developed years ago that's still relevant, but is not SCORM compliant. And one of the things we want to do is make it SCORM compliant so that it drops on different fire department, police department, and EMS learning management systems. So that's part one, is to convert that into SCORM compliant. The second piece we really want to address is aggressive deadly behavior, including active shooter, command post operations, public safety incident management, and then how do we treat and move radioactive patients.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Next item on the agenda.
Referral 18-0103.
Moved by Legislator Delahante. Questions on the floor? Yes, Legislator Shepherd.
Yes, to the administration, through the chair. What are the factors that are driving this increase?
Through the chair, can you repeat the question?
Could you identify the factors that are justifying the increase?
I'm sorry, is this 103 or 115?
103.
Okay. So 103 is an intermunicipal agreement with Spencerport Central School District?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So they are asking for 4.5 man-hours of sheriff's deputies' time at the junior prom, which I believe will be held at RIT this year on May 12th. This is the third year of our effort providing security and crowd control for Spencerport Central School District.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Next item on the agenda.
Referral 18-0115.
Oh, okay, we're good.
Move it, Madam Chairwoman. Second.
Moved by Legislator Delahante, seconded by Legislator Zale. Questions on the floor? Yes, Legislator Turp.
Through the chair, why is this a matter of importance? Through the chair, why is this a matter of importance?
Thank you. Through the chair, we've discovered that before the contract end on May 2008, that we were going to run out of money to pay WorkFit for their providing medical services as sheriff's physician to the Monroe County Sheriff's Office. So right now we're actually at the contract limit, which was $120,000 for a year. And we need to continue to be able to send sheriff's deputies there for not only annuals, but for such things as being certified in the respirator so they can do scuba exercises and be able to go in the water to recover persons if they go in the water, if they're injured on the job so they can return to work. Unfortunately, because of the differences in amounts between this provider and our prior provider, we've reached the contract maximum at an earlier point in time. So we have come to the legislature asking for this to be put on to increase the amount of the contract.
Through the chair, do we know the reason for the discrepancy between the two amounts of the contracted amount compared to what's been billed?
Yeah, certainly the amount in the contract was based on what we had in the prior years with New York Medical, and we had a $120,000 per year contract with New York Medical. We went to RFP last year, and WorkFit Medical was the lowest, had the lowest bid out of all the providers, including New York Medical, or Western New York Medical, our previous provider. However, their prices still were higher and went up. So even though we budgeted for the amounts, because of the higher healthcare costs per visit, per exam, it wound up just being more expensive. So in order to cover the rest of the contract from now until May, we're asking for an additional $30,000.
Yes, Legislator Conley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through the chair to the administration, is this contract to provide only physical health care for the employees, or is it mental health as well?
Well, to some degree, through the chair, to some degree it is mental health. For instance, if a deputy was taken out of work for mental health, WorkFit, as a sheriff's physician, would follow up with their provider and make sure that before they returned to work, they were cleared by any provider, whether it was a medical provider or a mental health provider.
Okay.
So they do act as a gatekeeper in that sense to make sure that any deputy returning to work on the road or in the jail has been vetted and is capable of being back to work.
Thank you. So through the chair, the deputies are able to continue to see their own providers. This organization would simply just make sure that their providers are clearing them, so we don't have like independent evaluations for deputies. Is that correct?
Through the chair, that is correct. WorkFit, as a sheriff's physician, would just be making sure that they are either able to return to work fully, return to work at a limited capacity, so they could do restrictive duty, or not return to work at all, and they would be continue to be treated by an outside physician and seen by WorkFit. So WorkFit may be the first person they see if they're injured on the job, but then they're referred to a specialist or another provider until they're able to return to work.
Thank you, and through the chair, is the increase solely due to the increase in price, or have we had a larger number of deputies who were injured this year than in years past?
Through the chair, so I did break down the numbers, looking for different contributors. When we had New York Medical, we budgeted for about 60 return to work visits a month for deputies that were injured, and comparing last year's numbers to, 2016 numbers to 2017 numbers, we are averaging 69 return to work visits per month, so it's not more, but the cost of the return to work visit was doubled between providers, so there isn't an increase in new hire physicals or exam, and there's not an increase really, except for the 9 a month in return to work, but it's the doubling of the prices or the increased price that's causing the contracts to not be able to stay within the limit of the previous contracts.
Thank you.
Yes, Legislator Mafucci.
Administration, so the cost could increase to $160,000, so it could cost $30,000 more. Where would that money come from? A contingency fund or just the general budget?
From the from the chair's budget.
Through the. Oh, okay. Thank you very much.
Yes, Legislator Zale.
Chair, through you to the administration, I guess I'm slightly confused. This contract that we already have through WorkFit Medical, does that have established rates within the contract?
Through the chair, it does have established rates. When the contract was entered into, it was the same amount cap, $120,000 that we had used with New York Medical, but the details weren't broken down. For example, per visits, how many physicals with respirators do we do each year? How many return to work visits do we do each year? The amounts weren't broken down to make sure that we could live with the new amounts in the old contract cap. So we've been trying to, I don't want to say austerity measures, but we've been trying to keep an eye on the amounts that are spent. We've been meeting with WorkFit Medical to make sure that when they do return to work visits, they're actually needed, that they're not bringing people in unnecessarily. So we're trying to internally keep the costs down, but unfortunately at this time we've been unable to stay within the contract cap.
Okay, thank you. So through the chair to the administration, is it safe to say then that, as my colleague had said before, it's not necessarily the increase in any rates of healthcare costs, but in the frequency of individuals coming to retrieve healthcare and the amount of co-pays that are being charged to them?
Through the chair, I don't think the frequency has increased, but the rates have increased. So
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but through the chair to the administration, if the rates are increasing, I guess I'm confused if we have a contract that should stipulate the amount of money that we need to allocate for, which would make the $130,000 appropriate. By increasing that $30,000, is that just a misappropriation of the amount of money that we should be spending? Or I guess I'm confused, if we have a contract, how the rates can increase in the middle of a contract.
Maybe it would be, can you give us an idea of what, like, okay, you said breakdown of like certain things, like maybe cost for each of those different services? Do you have a better understanding?
Well, I think one of the differences is the budget, through the chair, I apologize, the budget was in place before this contract had taken place. So we already had budgeted, based on our previous experience with Western New York Medical, the $120,000 contract. This being a new contract with different costs, we weren't able to stay within the $120,000. In fact, so the number of frequencies are the same. In fact, in 2017, we had less new hires, which contribute to the annual physicals. In 2015 and 16, we averaged about 100 or so new hires a year. In 2017, we only had 56, but the other increased costs of the contract have caused it to go over the $120,000.
So once again, what was the basis for changing from one service to the other? I know you said that, but.
Through the chair, we did go to RFP.
Right.
And we looked at the different providers, and WorkFit Medical, I believe, was actually one of the lower cost providers. And then we chose them based on their qualifications.
Right.
But
Through the chair to the administration, I'm going to ask this last question, and then I'll move on. What's confusing to me about this is that, as stated, it says in this that the healthcare rates were increased, but what I'm hearing you say is that because of additional hires, it was the frequency, but I think I heard earlier that it wasn't the frequency. And then in addition to that, we just heard that WorkFit Medical was less expensive, yes, yet we're increasing the amount to exceed by $30,000. So I suppose, maybe being new to this committee, that information I just don't fully understand.
sure.
I guess.
Through the chair, I can explain it to you. When we went out for RFP, WorkFit Medical did bid on this, and as well as Western New York Medical. But at the time of the bid, WorkFit was actually less expensive than Western New York Medical. Western New York Medical raised their rates so that WorkFit became the cheaper alternative. However, we did choose them based on their qualifications. As I've explained, in 2015 and 16, we averaged about 100 or so new hires a year. In 2017, we had 56 new hires, so we had less new hires in 2017. But because of the costs going up, we were still not able to contain costs.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes, Legislator Mafucci.
Are there any other contracts where we'll have to use austerity measures or find other money to fund?
Through the chair, I really hope not.
Yeah, okay, great. So do I. Thanks. Appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Yes, Legislator.
Yeah, because I haven't seen the sheriff's budget. Is there a contingency line in that budget?
Through the chair, no, we do not.
So through the chair to the administration, then the money's found in another way.
Through the chair, it's found through an appropriation transfer.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Legislator Conley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to the administration. Is the money that's expended for this contract, is it paid like as a fee for service? And if so, like, can you give me an example of how much it costs for a return to service visit?
Through the chair, that's exactly how it's paid. It's paid by invoice, and we have a couple people in our office who actually will scrub through those invoices really well. They find duplicates, and they kick it back to the company. For an example, the return to work visits is where we've seen one of our larger increase. Western New York Medical charged us $30 for a return to work visit, and WorkFit Medical charges us $60. So the price was doubled, and that's where we've seen a large, I think, almost $11,000 increase just in that one line item alone. So that's one of the things we're trying to tackle, is that simply one item.
Thank you.
All right.
But
I'll recognize Legislator Shepherd.
to the administration, through the chair, if a back to work costs $30 and they wrote the contract for that, how could they just raise it to $60 without going through some process?
Through the chair, I apologize if I misspoke. Western New York Medical, under the prior contract, charged $30 per return to work physical. When we started with our new contract with WorkFit, they charged $60. Western New York Medical would not have charged us $30 for the new contract after the RFP. They raised their rates as well.
Okay. Yes,
So-
Legislator Chair.
Just clarify, through the chair, you set up the budget, then in the middle of the budget season, you had to renew the contract, and the lowest one that we got was about double. So that's one of the reasons why it changes, because you budgeted under the assumption of the older contract, and then the contract came due. So it went from 30 to 60 in the middle of the budget season. And then also our return to works doubled or went up by about 15% from 60 to 69, which also was an increase, and that's why we need the extra funds to cover what the new contract and the extra 15% in the return to works.
Through the chair, yes, that is correct. They budgeted for 120. We have a new contract with a new provider. The prices are more expensive, and despite our efforts to keep it under, we were unable to do so.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Legislator Harris.
To the chair, to the administration, I'd like to know, the $160,000, will that take you through the end of the year?
Through the chair, that will take us to May, and I don't suspect that we're going to use the whole 130, so that will take us through May. We have a one-year option to renew this work-fit contract. Actually, we have 2 one-year options to renew. We're going to renew it for this year and then speak about what to do about 2019. So this would be a $30,000 increase for the 2017-18 contract, a $30,000 increase for the 18-19 contract, and if we do the additional option, then it would take us through the 3rd year. However, like I said, we would probably need to speak about that internally, whether or not we're going to use the additional option to renew. But at this point, since the contract's up in May and we need to renew, it's too late to go to RFP at this point in time.
Thank you.
Legislator Mafucci.
Through the chair to the administration, my last question, I promise. This money is coming from the sheriff's budget, interfund transfer, I understand all of that. Is there a vehicle in the sheriff's budget to run any monies left over at the end of the year into a fund balance for the next year so you can pay for unanticipated costs in the next fiscal year?
Madam Chair, the Sheriff's Office is accounted for within the general fund for Monroe County. We are not, as a municipality, allowed to use prior year appropriations to pay subsequent year expenses. Of course, there are exceptions to every rule. At the end of each fiscal year, we ask departments for their encumbrance reserves, but there are rules around that. 2017 appropriations would not be used for 2018 costs just because of cost overruns.
Thank you.
All right. Are we all good? All right. Now we're going to vote on this one. All right. Everybody sharpen your pencils. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Well, there you go. All right, are there any other matters to come before this committee? Seeing none, the next meeting of the Public Safety Committee is scheduled for Monday, April the 23rd at 5:30 p.m. We are now adjourned.